A single origami crane sits perfectly centered on a mahogany conference table, surrounded by scattered FDA documents and overturned medication samples. The paper is children's construction paper, bright yellow with tiny fingerprints still visible along the folded edges. Dr. Rebecca Sterling built a pharmaceutical empire on the promise that anxiety could be cured with the right chemical formula. Calm Kid was supposed to be her masterpiece, a breakthrough medication for children's anxiety disorders worth hundreds of millions in projected revenue. The FDA approval hearing was scheduled for Friday afternoon. That was before a night janitor taught her daughter to fold paper cranes. The approval suspension letter sits among the chaos, time-stamped hours after the hearing began. Federal investigators are now questioning whether someone who couldn't recognize a healer from a predator should be trusted with children's mental health. The pharmaceutical approach Dr. Sterling championed for decades crumbles under the weight of a simple truth. Her daughter's severe anxiety disappeared not through expensive medication, but through the quiet guidance of a man she had publicly destroyed. Marcus Chen never intended to challenge a pharmaceutical giant. He was simply a licensed child anxiety therapist working night shifts as a janitor to pay legal fees for his custody battle. His son suffered from anxiety too, and the irony wasn't lost on him. He spent his days helping other people's children heal while fighting to keep his own. The security footage captured everything that happened in the lobby that Tuesday afternoon. Dozens of employees witnessed Dr. Sterling's public destruction of a good man who dared to calm her daughter's panic attack. What they didn't know was that Marcus possessed a therapeutic technique that succeeded where expensive treatments failed. The child's panic attack stopped within minutes after Marcus began the crane folding technique. Her previous attacks, despite months of Calm Kid treatment, regularly lasted nearly an hour. Dr. Sterling's stress ball bears permanent finger impressions from that day. On her office wall hangs her daughter's drawing, a stick figure labeled Mommy, standing next to a taller figure surrounded by paper birds, labeled Crane Man. The artwork is dated days after the lobby incident, evidence that healing had already begun in secret. The vanilla lip balm scent that once comforted her daughter through panic attacks has returned to their afternoon routine. But now it's mixed with the subtle smell of origami paper and the sound of tiny fingers learning to fold precise edges that somehow align with deeper breathing patterns. Marcus's research on natural anxiety intervention threatens more than Dr. Sterling's current drug approval. The hearing room's floor-to-ceiling windows reflect the crowd of child advocacy protesters outside, holding signs questioning the parenting judgment of someone who would destroy her daughter's healer. The FDA officials shuffle through evidence that transforms a simple story of mistaken identity into a federal investigation of pharmaceutical ethics and corporate responsibility. In her desk drawer, Dr. Sterling keeps her own prescription bottle of Calm Kid, a higher dosage than she prescribed for her daughter. The medication that failed to help her child has become her own daily dependency, masking anxiety that originated in her own untreated childhood trauma. Marcus Chen's custodial access card shows him following his regular maintenance route that Tuesday afternoon. He wasn't stalking Dr. Sterling's daughter. He was emptying trash bins when he encountered a child in severe distress. The building's monthly fire drill data reveals something even more significant. For months, Marcus had successfully calmed employees' children during emergency evacuations using variations of his crane folding technique. The building management never knew they employed a licensed therapeutic specialist because he never disclosed his background, fearing it would cost him the night shift position he desperately needed. Dr. Sterling's daughter stopped speaking to her mother the day after the lobby incident. The selective mutism lasted weeks, until she secretly began meeting with Marcus again, documenting her progress in an art therapy journal hidden in her school backpack. The journal contains detailed drawings showing her emotional progression from dark, chaotic scribbles to intricate paper crane designs, each one more elaborate and peaceful than the last. The FDA investigators discovered that Calm Kid's clinical trials showed inconsistent results, with many participants experiencing increased anxiety symptoms. Some developed medication dependency within months. These statistics were buried in appendix documents never shared with the public or prescribing physicians. Marcus's technique requires no medication, produces no side effects, and costs nothing more than a square piece of paper and patient instruction. The precise finger movements regulate breathing patterns while creating something beautiful, a tangible representation of inner calm that children can carry and recreate independently. The conference room air conditioning hums with the same frequency as the breathing techniques Marcus teaches. Her breath fell into the fold's rhythm. Friday's hearing would determine more than drug approval status. It would decide whether pharmaceutical intervention or natural therapeutic methods deserved priority in children's mental health treatment. The evidence sitting on that conference table, security footage, medical records, witness statements, and one perfect paper crane, would force policy to change to childhood anxiety. How did a simple piece of paper bring down a pharmaceutical empire? Marcus Chen's alarm clock never got the chance to wake him. He'd been staring at the ceiling since 4 a.m., listening to his son's restless breathing through the thin apartment wall. 9-year-old Danny had inherited more than his father's dark eyes. The worry that kept Marcus awake most nights had found its way into his child's dreams, too. His phone buzzed. The lawyer's number flashed on the screen. Marcus, sorry to call early, but Jennifer's team filed another motion. They're claiming the night shift proves you're an unfit parent. The custody payment receipt lay crumpled on the nightstand. $847 by month's end. And now additional legal fees. Marcus pressed his palm against his forehead, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. What do they need? Proof of stable income. Documentation that your work schedule doesn't interfere with Danny's care. Maybe consider day shift positions. Marcus glanced toward Danny's room. Day shift meant leaving his son alone after school, right when panic episodes typically struck. Night work let him be present during Danny's vulnerable hours. I'll figure something out. The call ended. His uniform hung pressed and ready, navy blue with Chen embroidered over the breast pocket. No one at Sterling Pharmaceuticals knew that the quiet man who emptied their trash bins after hours held a master's degree in child psychology. The origami paper squares lived in his left pocket, cut to perfect 3-inch dimensions. Last month, Danny had been hyperventilating on the bathroom floor, his small chest heaving with rapid, shallow breaths. Marcus had knelt beside him with a yellow square of paper. "Watch my hands, buddy. See how the corners meet exactly?" Danny's breathing had begun to slow as he followed the precise folds. Crane's head, Crane's wings, Crane's tail emerging from careful creases. By the time they finished, Danny's panic had dissolved into wonder at the small bird perched in his palm. "Can we make another one, Dad?" Marcus reviewed Danny's emotion chart at the kitchen table while coffee brewed. Yesterday's entry showed a crayon drawing of a stick figure with a big smile, standing next to a pile of colorful paper birds. The boy had missed school again Tuesday, but the panic episodes were growing shorter. His laptop displayed draft research on paper folding therapeutic intervention. The preliminary data was promising. Children who learned origami alongside breathing techniques showed remarkable improvement in managing overwhelming emotions. The study needed funding for completion, but pharmaceutical companies weren't interested in research that might prove medication unnecessary. The Sterling Pharmaceuticals building loomed 47 stories into the Chicago skyline, its lobby gleaming with marble and corporate success. Marcus's security badge granted him access to every floor after business hours, a privilege that came with invisible status and a paycheck that barely covered his family's needs. His cleaning cart held more than industrial supplies. Tucked beneath the spray bottles and microfiber cloths was a small emergency kit he'd assembled over months of working around stressed corporate employees. Paper squares, stress balls, chamomile tea packets, and laminated cards with breathing exercise instructions. He'd helped a dozen different children during building emergencies without anyone knowing his qualifications. The night supervisor handed him the route clipboard, floors 45 through 47, executive offices, and conference rooms. Marcus moved through the empty hallways with practiced efficiency, emptying waste baskets and sanitizing surfaces while his mind wandered to tomorrow's custody hearing. Children's distress was reaching epidemic levels, yet the pharmaceutical industry's response was increasingly aggressive medication for younger and younger patients. Marcus had witnessed too many kids struggle with side effects that sometimes worsened their original symptoms. His natural techniques offered an alternative, but he lacked the corporate platform to share his findings. The Sterling executive floor held particular irony. Dr. Rebecca Sterling's corner office overlooked the city, its walls lined with awards for pharmaceutical innovation and children's mental health advocacy. Her company's newest product, CalmKid, was being fast-tracked through FDA approval, despite concerning trial data that Marcus had discovered in leaked documents. He'd noticed Dr. Sterling's daughter in the building before, a small girl with wide eyes who seemed to startle at every sound. The child's obvious unrest struck him as familiar, a mirror of Danny's struggles. But where Danny had a father who understood therapeutic intervention, this little girl had a mother who believed chemistry could solve what patience and understanding might heal more gently. Marcus finished his shift as dawn painted the conference room windows gold. His phone showed 3 missed calls from the lawyer. Tomorrow he'd return to this same routine. Invisible healing hidden within janitorial duties, research conducted in stolen moments between emptying trash and fighting for his son's future. He had no idea his kindness would soon trigger a corporate war. Dr. Rebecca Sterling's coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, but she continued gripping the ceramic mug like an anchor. Her corner office windows reflected the late afternoon Chicago skyline, but her focus remained fixed on the clinical trial reports scattered across her mahogany desk. CalmKid's approval deadline loomed, and the data wasn't cooperating. Her daughter's unopened chocolate milk cartons accumulated in the office mini-fridge like monuments to failed motherhood. 7-year-old Emma hadn't eaten lunch in the company cafeteria for 2 weeks, not since her episodes had escalated from daily worry to crippling panic that left her mute and shaking. The pharmaceutical board expected results. $500 million in projected revenue hung on Friday's FDA hearing, and Emma's worsening condition threatened everything Rebecca had built. How could she advocate for children's mental health medication when her own child was deteriorating under her care? Dr. Harrison's latest assessment lay open on her desk. Patient shows increased resistance to current CalmKid dosage. Recommend exploring alternative therapeutic approaches before considering medication adjustment. Alternative approaches. Rebecca's jaw tightened. 20 years of pharmaceutical research, countless breakthrough medications that had helped thousands of children, and her daughter's psychiatrist was suggesting she try what? Meditation? Art therapy? The holistic nonsense that threatened to undermine evidence-based medicine? Her desk drawer held its own secret. The prescription bottle bore her name, not Emma's. CalmKid, double the pediatric dosage she'd approved for other children. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was medicating her own stress while her daughter's condition defied the very treatment Rebecca had spent years developing. Emma's selective mutism had begun the day after Rebecca's last public presentation to the FDA Advisory Committee. The child had watched from the audience as her mother passionately defended pharmaceutical intervention for pediatric distress, promising that chemistry could solve what traditional therapy couldn't touch. That night, Emma had stopped speaking to her entirely. The building's monthly fire drill report caught Rebecca's attention. Someone had been helping children during emergency evacuations, calming panicked kids with what the security notes described as paper folding activities. The mystery helpers techniques consistently reduced evacuation time and eliminated the tears that usually accompanied building-wide alarms. Rebecca dismissed it as coincidence. Proper medical intervention required clinical oversight, controlled dosages, peer-reviewed protocols, not crafts projects administered by untrained personnel. Her phone buzzed with another message from Emma's school. The child had locked herself in the bathroom during lunch, hyperventilating until the nurse arrived. The school counselor suggested family therapy, implying that Emma's home environment might be contributing to her escalating episodes. The suggestion felt like professional failure. Rebecca specialized in children's mental health. Her company had helped thousands of families find stability through carefully calibrated medications. Yet her own daughter was spiraling beyond her reach, resistant to every treatment protocol Rebecca applied. The CalmKid samples lined her bookshelf like tiny soldiers, each one representing months of research and millions in development costs. Clinical trials showed 60% effectiveness in reducing childhood worry. But the statistics felt hollow when her own child represented the 40% for whom medication provided no relief. Emma's art from therapy sessions covered Rebecca's office wall, dark scribbles that grew more chaotic each week. Dr. Harrison insisted the drawings reflected Emma's internal state, but Rebecca saw only expensive therapeutic sessions that produced abstract artwork instead of measurable improvement. The building's security logs showed unusual activity on the executive floors during after-hours maintenance. Someone with custodial access had been spending extra time in areas where employees' children occasionally visited. Rebecca made a mental note to investigate. The last thing her company needed was unauthorized personnel interacting with vulnerable kids, especially with the FDA breathing down their necks about child safety protocols. Her phone rang. The school nurse again. "Dr. Sterling, Emma's having another episode. We've tried the breathing techniques you suggested, but she's asking for something called paper birds. Do you know what that means?" Paper birds. Rebecca frowned, thinking of the fire drill reports and the mysterious helper who used folding activities to calm distressed children. Her own solution was slowly poisoning everything she touched. Tuesday afternoon shift change brought chaos to the Sterling Pharmaceuticals lobby. Employees flooded the marble atrium, their conversations echoing off polished surfaces as day staff departed and evening crews arrived. Marcus pushed his cleaning cart toward the service elevators, invisible among the corporate bustle. Emma Sterling sat curled in the corner seating area, her small frame nearly swallowed by an oversized leather chair. Her breathing came in rapid, shallow gasps that Marcus recognized immediately, the onset of severe panic. Her mother stood 10 feet away, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly while discussing clinical trial modifications with FDA officials. The child's distress escalated. Her hands clutched a stress ball so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Employees glanced over with concern, but kept walking, unwilling to interfere with the CEO's family situation. Marcus abandoned his cart. "Hey there," he said softly, crouching to Emma's eye level. "That looks like pretty tough breathing. Want to try something that might help?" Emma's wide eyes met his. She managed a tiny nod. Marcus pulled a yellow paper square from his pocket. "Watch my hands. We're going to make something beautiful together, and your breathing is going to slow down without you even thinking about it." His fingers began the familiar folds. Valley crease, mountain crease, inside reverse fold. Emma's hyperventilation gradually matched the rhythm of his movements. 4 counts as he aligned edges, 7 counts as he creased the paper, 8 counts as he opened the next fold. "See how the corners meet exactly? Your breathing can be just as precise." Emma's panic began dissolving. Her rapid gasps smoothed into deeper, more controlled breaths. The stress ball relaxed in her grip as she watched Marcus's hands transform flat paper into something magical. "Paper bird," she whispered, her first words in hours. "That's right. And every time you fold one, you're practicing calm." Dr. Sterling ended her phone call and turned toward her daughter. What she saw froze her completely. A custodial worker crouched beside Emma, their heads bent together over what appeared to be some kind of craft project. The child was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time in weeks. Then corporate instinct overrode maternal relief. "Security!" Rebecca's voice cut through the lobby conversations like a blade. "I need security immediately." Heads turned. Conversation stopped. 52 employees witnessed what happened next. "Get away from my daughter!" Rebecca strode across the marble floor, her heels clicking like gunshots. "How dare you approach a child without permission?" Marcus remained calm, finishing the crane's final fold before standing slowly. "Ma'am, she was having a panic attack. You were stalking my daughter." Rebecca's voice echoed off the lobby's vaulted ceiling. "This is inappropriate contact with a minor on company property." Security guards emerged from their station, hands moving instinctively toward their radios. The gathering crowd of employees created a perfect amphitheater for public destruction. "Sir, please step away from the child," the lead guard commanded. Marcus raised his hands, backing away from Emma's chair. The completed origami crane sat on the side table beside her, its yellow wings catching the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. "I'm a licensed therapist," Marcus said quietly. The child was in distress. "I used a standard calming technique." "Therapist?" Rebecca's laugh was sharp, calculated for maximum humiliation. "You're a janitor. You clean toilets and empty trash cans. What kind of perverted fantasy makes you think you can touch other people's children?" The lobby had gone completely silent. Smartphones appeared in dozens of hands, recording every word. "Ma'am, if you'll just check my credentials." "Your credentials?" Rebecca gestured to his uniform, his cleaning cart, the service elevator where he belonged. "Your credential is that mop bucket. Your qualification is being desperate enough to work for minimum wage, emptying our garbage." Emma reached for the paper crane, clutching it against her chest. Her breathing remained steady, calm, a stark contrast to her mother's escalating fury. I want him removed from the building immediately. Rebecca continued. I want his employment terminated, and I want a full investigation into how long this stalking behavior has been going on. The security guards flanked Marcus, professional but firm. One of them spoke into his radio. We need police response to the main lobby. Possible inappropriate contact with a minor. Marcus didn't resist as they guided him toward the exit. Over his shoulder, he saw Emma still holding the crane, her small voice calling out, Paper Birdman! Paper Birdman, don't go! The lobby doors sealed behind him with a hollow thud. Through the glass, he could see Rebecca kneeling beside Emma's chair, trying to pry the origami crane from her daughter's desperate grip. Security footage from 47 different cameras captured every angle of the incident. The timestamp read 3:47 p.m. The recording would continue running as Rebecca finally succeeded in taking the crane from Emma's hands and crushing it deliberately underfoot. 50 witnesses, 7 minutes. One man's life completely destroyed. The criminal investigation notice arrived at Marcus's apartment 3 days later, delivered by a process server who treated him like a predator. Child endangerment charges, inappropriate contact with a minor, a restraining order barring him from within 500 feet of Sterling Pharmaceuticals or any property owned by the Sterling family. His lawyer delivered the news with clinical detachment. They're seeking to revoke your therapy license permanently. Your ex-wife's team has filed an emergency motion citing the charges as evidence of unstable behavior. The custody hearing has been moved up. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, staring at the legal documents that dismantled his life in precise legal language. Danny had retreated to his bedroom after seeing the police cars outside their building. The boy's anxiety had spiked beyond anything Marcus had seen before. His own father was now labeled a threat to children. But Emma Sterling's face haunted him. That moment when her breathing synchronized with the paper folds, when panic dissolved into wonder. He'd helped her in exactly the way he helped Danny, using techniques that cost nothing and harmed no one. The building's maintenance staff entrance still recognized his access card, an oversight in Sterling's rush to destroy him publicly. Marcus waited until after midnight, when the executive floors emptied and only security cameras witnessed his return. He found Emma in her mother's office, curled in the corner chair where Rebecca often brought her during late-night work sessions. The child was hyperventilating again, clutching the remnants of the yellow crane her mother had crushed. Her small fingers worked desperately to smooth the torn paper, trying to restore what had been beautiful. "Remember me?" Marcus whispered from the doorway. Emma's head snapped up. Recognition flooded her tear-streaked face. "Paper Birdman," she breathed. "Mommy said you were bad, but you helped me breathe." Marcus glanced at the security camera blinking in the corner. Everything he did now would be recorded, documented, potentially used against him. But this child needed help, and he was the only person who knew how to provide it. "Your mom was scared," he said gently, settling cross-legged on the carpet nearby. "Sometimes grown-ups get scared when they don't understand something." He pulled fresh origami paper from his pocket. Blue this time, the color of calm skies. "Want to try again? Your breathing looks pretty fast right now." Emma nodded eagerly, scrambling down from the chair to sit facing him on the office carpet. Her breathing rate was approaching dangerous levels, the kind that led to fainting in children her size. "Okay, we're going to fold together, and your body is going to remember how to be peaceful. Watch my hands first." Marcus began the initial valley fold. Emma's racing breath caught, held, then released as she followed his movement. 4 counts to align the edges, 7 counts to press the crease, 8 counts to prepare for the next fold. "Now you try." Emma's small fingers mimicked his movements with surprising precision. The paper transformed under their synchronized motions. Base fold, bird base, pulling the wings into position. Her hyperventilation gradually evolved into the controlled breathing pattern that Marcus had taught Danny, that he'd used successfully with dozens of anxious children. "Tell me what you feel right now," Marcus said as they worked. "Calm," Emma whispered, "like the scared feelings are folding up inside the bird." The transformation took exactly 4 minutes. Emma's panic attack dissolved completely as the blue crane took shape in her hands. She held it up to the office light, marveling at the clean lines and perfect symmetry. "Can I keep this one? It's yours. And every time you feel scared, you can make another one. The paper remembers how to be peaceful, just like your body does." Emma clutched the crane against her chest. "Will you teach me the hard one? The one with the long neck?" Marcus glanced again at the camera. "By tomorrow, Security would review this footage. Rebecca would see him here, would know he'd violated the restraining order. The consequences would be severe. Possible jail time, definite loss of custody, complete destruction of any hope for professional rehabilitation. But Emma's breathing was steady now. Her color had returned to normal. The stress that had paralyzed her for days was gone, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful with her own hands. "The heron is pretty advanced," Marcus said, "but I think you can handle it." He pulled out green paper this time, the color of growth and new beginnings. Emma leaned forward eagerly, her small hands already positioned to mirror his movements. As they folded together in the quiet office, 47 floors above the sleeping city, the security camera recorded everything, every gentle instruction, every moment of healing, every careful fold that proved therapeutic intervention could be as simple as patience and understanding. The crane technique worked, but someone was watching. Emma Sterling began hiding things. First, it was the blue crane in her school backpack's secret pocket, wrapped carefully in tissue paper so the wings wouldn't crease. Then came the art therapy journal she'd never shown Dr. Harrison, pages filled with detailed drawings of paper birds in flight, each one more elaborate than the last. Her mother's pharmaceutical world buzzed with clinical assessments and medication adjustments. But Emma lived in a different space now. During Buildingg fire drills, she no longer dissolved into tears. Instead, she found herself scanning the crowd of evacuating employees, looking for the quiet man who'd taught her that panic could be folded into something beautiful. Marcus continued his secret visits to the 47th floor, timing them carefully around security rotations and Rebecca's predictable schedule. The restraining order made each encounter a felony, but Emma's progress justified every risk. Her selective mutism was breaking down, replaced by whispered conversations about crane folding techniques and breathing patterns. "Daddy taught me this one," Emma said during their third meeting, producing a lopsided paper frog from her pocket. "But yours are prettier." "Your dad knows origami?" Marcus asked, surprised. Emma shook her head. "Not my daddy. My real daddy, before Mommy got too busy for visits." The revelation explained much. Rebecca Sterling's drive to medicate childhood distress stemmed from her own experience as a single mother, overwhelmed by parenting responsibilities that interfered with corporate ambitions. Emma's anxiety wasn't just medical, it was environmental, rooted in abandonment and emotional distance that no pharmaceutical intervention could address. "Tell me about the elevator game," Marcus suggested, pulling out silver paper that caught the office lighting like moonlight. Emma's face brightened. "I count the floors when we go up. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 4, 5, 6, breathe. It makes the scared feeling smaller." "Smart girl. You're teaching your body how to stay calm in tight spaces." They worked together on an intricate design, a crane with extended wings that required precise finger movements and careful attention to symmetry. Emma's breathing naturally synchronized with the folding rhythm, her nervous energy channeling into creative focus. The building's monthly emergency protocols had become Emma's favorite events. Last Friday's fire drill revealed something remarkable. While other children panicked during the alarm, Emma had calmly helped a younger boy practice the counting technique Marcus had taught her. The security footage captured her small hands demonstrating paper folding motions, her quiet voice explaining breathing patterns to another anxious child. "She's becoming a healer herself," Marcus realized, watching Emma's confident movements as she mastered increasingly complex designs. Her hidden journal documented 3 months of steady progress. The early pages showed chaotic scribbles and dark colors, visual representations of panic and fear. Recent entries featured detailed crane illustrations, step-by-step folding instructions written in careful 7-year-old handwriting, and emotion charts that tracked her improving mood through rainbow progressions instead of storm clouds. "Mommy doesn't understand why I'm getting better," Emma confided during their 4th meeting. "She keeps asking Dr. Harrison to change my medicine, but I don't take it anymore. I flush it down the toilet and make cranes instead." The admission startled Marcus. "Emma, you can't stop medication without telling your doctor. That could be dangerous." "But the pills make me feel fuzzy, and when I fold paper, I feel clear, like my brain remembers how to be happy." Emma's improvement threatened the fundamental assumptions of Rebecca's pharmaceutical approach. If a child could overcome severe anxiety through simple behavioral techniques, what did that say about the necessity of chemical intervention? The implications rippled far beyond one family's situation. The silver crane took shape in Emma's small hands, its wings perfectly proportioned and symmetrical. She held it up to the window, watching city lights reflect off the metallic paper. "When I grow up, I want to teach other kids how to make peaceful feelings," she said, "just like you taught me." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling over him like a blanket. This child's healing would either vindicate his therapeutic approach or destroy them both if Rebecca discovered their secret meetings. 3 months of secret healing, 0 corporate knowledge. The FBI pharmaceutical investigation launched on a Wednesday morning with federal agents arriving at Sterling Pharmaceuticals in unmarked sedans. Dr. Rebecca Sterling watched from her office window as investigators carried boxes of Calm Kid trial data toward waiting vehicles, each carton representing months of research that might never see market approval. Marcus Chen's name appeared in the federal files as an unexpected witness. His research on natural anxiety intervention had caught the attention of child advocacy groups questioning the rush toward medicating younger and younger patients. The preliminary data from his origami-based therapy studies showed success rates that challenged the pharmaceutical industry's fundamental assumptions. Dr. Chen's credentials are impeccable, Agent Martinez explained to Rebecca during the initial interview. Licensed child therapist, published researcher, clean background check. The restraining order you filed raises questions about the circumstances of his termination. Rebecca's corporate lawyers flanked her like sentries, their expressions carefully neutral as federal investigators laid out evidence that painted her company's practices in troubling light. Calm Kid's clinical trials had buried adverse effects data in appendix documents, hiding the fact that nearly a quarter of child participants experienced increased anxiety symptoms. "We need to verify the allegations against Dr. Chen," Agent Martinez continued. "If your daughter was indeed experiencing distress, and he provided appropriate therapeutic intervention, the criminal charges you filed could be considered retaliatory." The building's security footage became crucial evidence. 47 camera angles had captured the lobby incident from every perspective, documenting Marcus's professional response to Emma's panic attack and Rebecca's subsequent destruction of his reputation. The video timeline contradicted Rebecca's narrative of stalking behavior, showing instead a trained therapist responding to a medical emergency. Emma's hidden art journal surfaced during a routine child welfare check. The drawings provided a visual timeline of her recovery. Dark, chaotic scribbles from months of pharmaceutical treatment gradually transforming into detailed origami crane illustrations that corresponded with her secret meetings with Marcus. The improvement was documented, measurable, and completely inexplicable according to Rebecca's treatment protocols. Dr. Harrison, Emma's psychiatrist, found himself in an uncomfortable position. His patient had shown remarkable improvement despite reporting medication non-compliance. Emma's anxiety levels had dropped to normal ranges through techniques he hadn't prescribed, calling into question the necessity of continued pharmaceutical intervention. "She describes folding paper and counting breathing patterns, doctor," Harrison told the investigators. "These are legitimate therapeutic techniques typically employed by licensed professionals with specific training in childhood anxiety disorders." The FDA Advisory Committee, scheduled for Friday afternoon, would determine more than Calm Kid's approval status. Child advocacy protesters had gathered outside the building, carrying signs questioning whether someone who couldn't distinguish therapeutic intervention from predatory behavior should be trusted with pediatric mental health medications. Marcus's legal situation shifted dramatically as federal investigators verified his credentials and reviewed the security footage. The criminal charges that threatened his therapy license and custody rights began dissolving under scrutiny from prosecutors who recognized the difference between appropriate therapeutic response and the accusations Rebecca had fabricated. His ex-wife's legal team retreated as character witnesses emerged, Buildingg employees who'd observed Marcus's professional competence during emergency situations, parents whose children had benefited from his intervention during fire drills, and child psychology colleagues who testified to his ethical practice and innovative research. The custody hearing was postponed pending resolution of the federal investigation. Danny's anxiety had actually improved since learning his father was being recognized as a hero rather than condemned as a criminal. Friday, 2 p.m. Everything would be decided. The FDA Advisory Committee hearing room filled with an unusual mix of federal officials, pharmaceutical executives, child advocates, and media representatives. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed protesters outside holding signs reading, "Children need healers, not dealers," and "Who watches the watchers?" The Sterling Pharmaceuticals livestream would broadcast these proceedings to over 200 employees watching from their desks. Dr. Rebecca Sterling entered wearing her most professional suit, flanked by corporate lawyers who'd spent weeks preparing for this moment. Calm Kid's approval hung in the balance, along with $500 million in projected revenue and her reputation as a leader in pediatric mental health innovation. Marcus Chen sat at the witness table, no longer wearing a janitor's uniform. His navy blazer and tie transformed him into what he'd always been, a licensed professional with expertise that commanded respect. Beside him sat Agent Martinez, a folder thick with evidence that would change everything. Emma Sterling occupied a small chair near the back of the room, clutching a silver origami crane that caught the afternoon light. Her presence had been requested by child advocacy representatives who argued that the subject of treatment should witness discussions about her own mental health care. "This hearing will examine the Calm Kid approval application," announced Dr. Patricia Wong, the FDA committee chairwoman. "However, recent developments require us to address allegations of misconduct surrounding the clinical trial process and the treatment of potential witnesses." Rebecca's lawyer stood immediately. "Dr. Sterling is here to discuss pharmaceutical innovation, not personnel disputes with former employees." "Dr. Chen was never your employee," Agent Martinez interjected. "He was a licensed child therapist working night shifts to pay legal fees while conducting breakthrough research on natural anxiety intervention." The first revelation hit the room like a physical force. Rebecca's narrative of firing a dangerous janitor crumbled as Marcus's credentials were read into the record. Master's degree in child psychology, 3 years of published research on non-pharmaceutical anxiety treatment, and a therapeutic success rate that exceeded any medication-based intervention. The security footage tells the complete story. Agent Martinez continued, gesturing toward the large monitor being wheeled into position. The lobby incident played from multiple camera angles. 47 different perspectives showed Emma's panic attack, Marcus's professional therapeutic response, and Rebecca's subsequent destruction of a good man's reputation. The audio captured every word of her public humiliation, every false accusation designed to protect her pharmaceutical worldview from challenge. The room watched in silence as Marcus gently guided Emma through origami folding, her breathing visibly slowing, her panic dissolving into calm focus. Then came Rebecca's voice, sharp and calculated. "You're a janitor. You clean toilets and empty trash cans." Several committee members shifted uncomfortably. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Professional therapeutic intervention versus corporate cruelty designed for maximum public impact. "Dr. Sterling," Agent Martinez addressed Rebecca directly. "Were you aware of Dr. Chen's professional qualifications when you filed criminal charges against him?" Rebecca's corporate composure began cracking. "The safety of my daughter was my primary concern. I couldn't risk." "Your daughter's improvement under Dr. Chen's care contradicts that statement." Emma's art therapy journal was entered as evidence. Page after page documented her transformation from pharmaceutical-resistant anxiety to remarkable recovery through simple paper folding techniques. The drawings spoke louder than any clinical assessment, chaos evolving into beauty, fear transforming into confidence. Dr. Harrison took the witness stand with obvious reluctance. "Emma's recovery has been unprecedented. Her anxiety levels normalized within weeks of beginning what she described as crane therapy. The techniques she learned appear to be legitimate behavioral interventions typically employed by licensed professionals." The emotional breakthrough came when Emma herself was invited to speak. Her small voice carried clearly through the hearing room's acoustic system. "The crane man taught me how to fold up my scared feelings," she said, holding up her silver bird. "When I make paper birds, my breathing gets calm, and my heart stops racing. Mommy's pills made me feel sleepy and confused, but paper folding makes me feel clear and happy." Tears appeared on several faces in the room. This wasn't abstract pharmaceutical policy. It was a child describing her own healing through methods that cost nothing and produced no side effects. Rebecca Sterling broke. "I built my career on the premise that chemistry could solve what psychology couldn't touch," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. When I saw my daughter responding to simple origami therapy, it threatened everything I believed about treatment protocols. The confession continued, words spilling out like water through a broken dam. I've been taking Calm Kid myself for months, double the pediatric dosage I approved for other children. The medication that failed to help Emma became my own dependency, masking anxiety rooted in childhood trauma I never addressed. The pharmaceutical industry's fundamental assumptions lay shattered in that hearing room. If the CEO who developed children's anxiety medication couldn't help her own child through chemical intervention, what did that say about the rush to medicate younger and younger patients? Agent Martinez presented the final piece of evidence, Buildingg emergency drill data showing Marcus had successfully calmed 12 different employees' children during fire evacuations using variations of his crane folding technique. The Buildingg management had unknowingly employed a therapeutic specialist whose natural methods consistently outperformed expensive pharmaceutical interventions. Dr. Chen's research shows a 94% success rate with zero adverse effects. Agent Martinez stated, Calm Kid's clinical trials, including data Dr. Sterling attempted to suppress, show 60% effectiveness with 23% of participants experiencing increased anxiety symptoms. The FDA committee didn't need to deliberate long. Calm Kid's approval was suspended pending investigation into suppressed adverse effects data. Dr. Sterling faced federal charges for falsifying witness testimony and attempting to destroy evidence of effective alternative treatments. But the most devastating consequence was personal. Emma Sterling walked across the hearing room to Marcus Chen, placing her silver crane gently on his witness table. "Thank you for teaching me how to be brave," she whispered. Rebecca watched her daughter, calm, confident, healed through methods that threatened everything Rebecca had built, choose her true therapeutic advocate over the mother who'd tried to medicate away problems that required understanding and patience. The live stream captured every moment. 200 Sterling Pharmaceuticals employees witnessed their CEO's complete professional collapse and her daughter's public vindication of the man she'd tried to destroy. Outside the hearing room windows, protesters had grown quiet, their signs lowering as word spread that justice was finally being served. The pharmaceutical industry's stranglehold on children's mental health treatment had been challenged by something as simple as a paper crane and the patient hands that taught a frightened child to fold her fears into something beautiful. The truth was about to shatter more than one life. The FDA committee's decision came down like a gavel striking marble. Calm Kid's approval was not just suspended, it was revoked pending a comprehensive investigation into suppressed clinical trial data. Dr. Patricia Wong's voice carried across the hearing room with the weight of federal authority. This committee finds that Sterling Pharmaceuticals engaged in deliberate suppression of adverse effects data and attempted retaliation against a qualified professional who provided legitimate therapeutic intervention. The financial consequences hit immediately. Sterling Pharmaceuticals' stock price plummeted 18% in after-hours trading as investors absorbed the implications. $500 million in projected revenue evaporated, but the reputational damage ran deeper. How many other pharmaceutical companies were medicating problems that behavioral intervention could solve more effectively? Dr. Rebecca Sterling sat motionless as federal investigators formally charged her with witness intimidation, falsifying testimony, and criminal retaliation against a licensed healthcare professional. Her legal team whispered urgently among themselves, but there was no defense against security footage that captured her deliberate destruction of a good man's reputation. Marcus Chen's vindication was complete, but bittersweet. The criminal charges that had threatened his therapy license were dropped with prejudice. His custody case was dismissed after his ex-wife's lawyers withdrew their claims following character testimony from dozens of colleagues and parents whose children Marcus had helped. But the personal cost had been devastating. Months of legal fees, professional isolation, and public humiliation couldn't be undone by federal recognition. Marcus had lost his janitor position, his apartment lease was in jeopardy, and Danny had missed weeks of school due to the stress of watching his father branded as a predator. Emma Sterling's recovery became a case study that reverberated through pediatric psychology programs nationwide. Her transformation from pharmaceutical-resistant anxiety to complete emotional stability through simple origami therapy challenged fundamental assumptions about childhood mental health treatment. The Buildingg employees who had witnessed Rebecca's lobby destruction found their voices. Maintenance supervisor Janet Chen, no relation to Marcus, testified that he'd been helping children during emergency drills for months, using breathing techniques and paper folding to keep them calm during evacuations. He never sought recognition or compensation. She told investigators he just saw kids in distress and knew how to help them. That's not predatory behavior, that's heroic. The Sterling Pharmaceuticals Board convened an emergency session that evening. Rebecca's resignation was accepted immediately, but the damage to the company's reputation required dramatic action. The board announced a complete review of all pediatric mental health medications, promising transparency in clinical trial reporting and increased funding for non-pharmaceutical research. Emma's testimonial video, recorded with her consent and her father's permission, went viral within hours. A 7-year-old girl explaining how paper cranes taught her to manage anxiety reached millions of parents desperate for alternatives to medicating their children. The pharmaceutical industry's marketing budgets couldn't compete with authentic healing, documented by a child's own words. Child advocacy groups seized the moment. The National Association of Pediatric Therapists announced new guidelines prioritizing behavioral intervention before pharmaceutical treatment in cases of childhood anxiety. Marcus's research on origami-based therapy became required reading in graduate psychology programs. The protesters outside the hearing room transformed into celebration. Parents who'd watched their children struggle with medication side effects saw hope in Emma's story. Signs reading, "Children need healers, not dealers," evolved into "Thank you, Dr. Chen," and "Origami saves lives." Marcus's professional rehabilitation began immediately. The Illinois Board of Licensed Therapists issued a formal apology for suspending his credentials based on fabricated charges. Multiple hospitals and therapy centers extended job offers, recognizing that his ordeal had proven his character rather than destroyed it. But Emma Sterling faced the most difficult transition. Her mother's arrest meant custody arrangements needed immediate attention. Her father, absent for years while Rebecca built her pharmaceutical empire, was contacted by social services to discuss Emma's future care. The irony was profound. Rebecca's obsession with medicating childhood anxiety had created the very abandonment trauma that drove Emma's original symptoms. The pharmaceutical solution had been treating effects while amplifying causes. Emma placed her silver origami crane on the witness table one final time, its wings catching afternoon light streaming through the hearing room windows. The paper bird that had started as a therapeutic tool had become evidence, then symbol, then catalyst for industry-wide transformation. Marcus approached the table slowly, picking up the crane with gentle fingers that recognized the precise folds Emma had mastered through their secret sessions. "Keep it," Emma said softly, "so you remember that healing doesn't have to hurt." Justice was served, but healing had just begun. 6 months after the FDA hearing, the Sterling Pharmaceuticals building lobby had been transformed. Where marble coldness once reflected corporate indifference, warm lighting now illuminated the entrance to the Lighthouse program, the first corporate-sponsored therapeutic sanctuary designed specifically for employees' children. Marcus Chen stood in the center of the renovated space, no longer invisible in a janitor's uniform, but wearing the professional attire of the Director of Natural Therapeutic Methods. Around him, 12 children sat cross-legged on colorful mats, their small fingers working carefully through origami folds while their breathing synchronized with the rhythm of creation. The program had emerged from the ashes of Rebecca Sterling's pharmaceutical empire. The federal investigation had uncovered a $50 million settlement fund, money originally earmarked for Calm Kid marketing that was redirected toward research into non-pharmaceutical anxiety treatments. Marcus's techniques became the foundation for a revolutionary approach to childhood mental health. "Remember, the paper teaches patience," Marcus told a young boy whose fingers trembled with nervous energy. "Each fold is a breath. Each breath is a choice to be calm." Emma Sterling sat among the children, no longer the anxious CEO's daughter, but a confident peer teacher who helped younger kids master basic crane designs. Her recovery had become the program's most powerful testimonial, proof that healing didn't require expensive medications or lengthy therapy protocols, just patient guidance and simple tools. The Lighthouse program operated from converted conference rooms on the building's lower floors. What had once been sterile meeting spaces now buzzed with children's laughter and the soft sounds of paper being folded into hope. Parents could bring their anxious children here after school, during lunch breaks, or whenever panic threatened to overwhelm young minds. Dr. Patricia Wong, the FDA committee chairwoman, visited monthly to document the program's results. The preliminary data was staggering. 91% of participating children showed significant anxiety reduction within 4 weeks. 0 adverse effects. 0 dependency issues. The cost per child was less than what most families spent on a single therapy session. Traditional pharmaceutical approaches treated anxiety as a chemical imbalance requiring chemical correction, Dr. Wong explained to visiting medical students. Dr. Chen's methods recognize anxiety as a learned response that can be unlearned through better coping mechanisms. Marcus's published research had revolutionized pediatric psychology. Universities worldwide implemented origami-based therapy training in their graduate programs. The technique was so effective and easily taught that school counselors, parents, and even older children could master the basics in a single session. Rebecca Sterling had been sentenced to community service, 500 hours teaching pharmaceutical ethics at a nonprofit foundation she was required to fund. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who'd tried to destroy a healer was now legally obligated to educate others about ethical treatment practices. Her relationship with Emma remained complicated. Supervised visits allowed them to rebuild trust slowly, with Marcus serving as family therapist to help both mother and daughter process the trauma Rebecca's corporate obsessions had created. Emma's father had returned from years of voluntary absence, taking primary custody while Rebecca completed her rehabilitation. The Building's emergency drill data showed remarkable changes. Where children once panicked during evacuations, they now helped each other practice breathing techniques and paper folding exercises. The security footage that had once documented Marcus's destruction now captured his vindication. Dozens of small hands creating beauty from chaos, while their hearts learned to remain steady during stress. Danny Chen thrived in the new environment. His father's transformation from persecuted janitor to celebrated innovator had given the boy something more valuable than therapy. Proof that good people eventually receive recognition for their goodness. Danny now taught origami to children younger than himself, his own anxiety channeled into helping others find peace. The pharmaceutical industry had been forced to reevaluate its approach to childhood mental health. Several companies redirected research funding toward behavioral intervention studies, recognizing that Marcus's success threatened the sustainability of medication-first treatment protocols. But the Lighthouse program's greatest success wasn't measured in statistics or research papers. It lived in moments like these. A former executive's daughter teaching origami to the son of the man her mother had tried to destroy. Both children calm and confident, their breathing steady as they folded paper into symbols of hope. Marcus picked up his own origami crane from the table where he'd first demonstrated the technique to a panicked 7-year-old. The yellow paper had faded slightly, but the folds remained sharp, the wings still perfectly balanced. Emma had returned it to him on graduation day, the moment she'd mastered every design he could teach. The afternoon light streaming through the lobby's renovated windows caught the crane's surface, illuminating tiny fingerprints still visible along the edges. Those prints belonged to the child who'd started it all, whose healing had challenged an empire and transformed an industry. Outside, Chicago's skyline stretched toward the horizon, but inside the Lighthouse program, the view was simpler. Children learning that peace could be folded from a single sheet of paper by patient hands that understood healing. Some paper cranes change everything.